Welcome back to Amplifying Our Voices. I'm your host, Patty Hayek. Thank you for being here. In today's episode, I sit down with Leslie Vines. She's a retired ESL teacher whose life is a masterclass in resilience, service, and joy. She's someone who continues to show up with a heart full of compassion, and her light is contagious. This conversation is about strength, purpose, and what it means to live a life that radiates joy. Let's tune in. Thank you, Leslie, so much for meeting with me today. I'm so happy to talk to you.
Thank you. Same. Yes.
I like to start off with, where does your story begin?
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm 60, so that's going in the time machine. Well, I was a daughter of a single mom, and I was the youngest of three. Basically on her own. My father died when I was almost 5 years old. So I have very little memory of him, but my life was formed by my mom and my siblings and that family dynamic of her being a single mom. So, and I grew up in East Tennessee and was, like I said, I'm 60. So was a child during a wonderful time to me because it was what I call kind of a natural childhood. We were before the age of technology, and I grew up in a neighborhood with lots of kids. And I feel like that, how things are going to form you,
Mhm.
whether you choose them or not. I mean, you're formed by who you are around and who influences you, who you spend time with, what your foundation is. And
Right.
so that's really where I began, being a youngest of a single mom in a neighborhood, having a fantastic time as
Oh,
a
I
kid.
love that. That's beautiful. Now, can you tell me, is there any part of your childhood that shaped the woman that you are today, whether that's being the youngest or the child of a single mother, anything
Oh
that
yes.
stands out?
Yes. Well, when I say I was my dad passed away when a little bit before I was turned five, but he was an alcoholic and abusive to my mother. So much of my strengths and my weaknesses as a human were formed from that experience. And my mom, I was telling this story just the other day. I had just been on vacation with three out of my four children, and they had a close relationship with my mom. And I said, my mom was so strong because she had to be. And she always instilled that I was to be strong, independent, do things for myself, don't rely on other people to meet your needs. You need to be financially, you need to handle your business. And it's funny, I was just like, okay, soaking it in, taking it in. And she said, you will not get married until you get your college degree. And it never occurred to me, Patty, that I could say no to that. I mean, really, I was just like, okay. And
Yes,
then
ma'am.
she's, yes, ma'am. Oh, yeah. I guess seeing her life, I was like, that seems totally what I need to do. And then when I was in college, she said, I think a biology major would be good for you, give you lots of options. Okay. And she said, you've got time, you should probably get your education minor and go ahead and get your education certificate too. That'll give you, that's like a plan B. It's like a backup plan. I'm like, okay. All of those things I did and did not question them. However, I see the wisdom in all of those things. And I see why she did those things. I see why she was so insistent because she had to struggle after my dad passed. She struggled
Mhm.
before my dad passed. She had to struggle after financially. And she just didn't want that she wanted me to have choices. And so I respected that a lot. On the flip side, I still struggle with the little bit like my husband, we've been married 37 years, and he'll say, "Here, let me help you. I don't need help. Why would you think I needed help? Do I look like I'm struggling with this? I don't need help." So I have
Right.
to balance all of that. But I think just her being so strong and seeing her, here's just a quick little story about her, just to give you a little perspective and context. When my dad passed, he left her the house that we were living in. And My grandparents told her, "You're not gonna make it. You need to just come move in with us. You're never gonna make it. You're not gonna be able to pay this house payment,
Mhm.
pay the insurance, take care of your kids. You've gotta have help." And she said and she told me this story. She told my brother and sister too. She just said, "You watch me." And I mean, she was so determined to be independent and away from that toxic family that there was nothing that was going to stop her from handling her business and taking care of her kids. So that really informed so much of me going forward with my life.
Oh, I love that. She sounds like an amazing woman.
She certainly was. He was very inspiring to me in so many ways. I feel like so much of who I am I'm just tethered to her, really. Her.
Absolutely. Now, was there a moment early in your life where you realized that you loved language or helping others find their voice?
Well, I'll just in a time of um I think you hear a lot of people out there today in like contemporary culture saying people, they're the worst. I've always liked people. Do I still like people? I'm like, people are awesome. What are y'all talking about? You're just hanging out with the wrong people, evidently. When I was a kid, I was super social. I really loved being with my siblings and their friends and neighborhood friends. And so just obviously Jefferson City where I grew up was not very diverse, but that really never stopped me. I just don't have a lot of barriers with people myself personally. I like to learn about other people and who they are and where they came from. I just find people super interesting. So that really lended itself for my first job when I got out of college. I went into sales, pharmaceutical sales. And people are like, "Oh, sales is so hard." I'm like, sales is the easiest job I've ever done. It's so easy. It was for me. To be successful at sales, you have to be, in my opinion, authentic and have a true, authentic interest in other people. And when you do that, you are able to build these relationships, and relationships are the key for me, the key to success, the key to finding joy in your life. So I'm getting there, Patty. Hang on. I'm getting there. So I just loved sales. And then it got kind of difficult for me to take care of my children and travel and do sales at the same time. So props to my mother who said, "You should also get your education minor and go ahead and get your teaching certification." So the joy that I had watching my own children and their friends acquire language was fascinating to me. I think if I had to go back and do a different major, go back to college, I would probably study linguistics
Mhm.
because it's the language acquisition process is just really it's so fascinating and complex. I just love it. So a friend of mine who bilingual teaches here, can still teaches here in our district system, said, would you have any interest in starting out as a tutor for our ESL population? And I was like, yes, I don't know what I'm doing, but that sounds awesome. Yes. So that's where it began back in 2000s. Then I went ahead and pursued being an ESL teacher, which required me getting my master's in
Mhm.
teaching English as a second language. Loved those courses so much. I couldn't wait. Now, this sounds crazy. Work all day, get up, get the kids off to school, go to work all day, find transportation for them, getting to practices and this and that. And I couldn't wait to get to class because I was just learning so much and found it so, so interesting. So that was an easy transition for me to the love of teaching and just finding it. I'm just so energized by it. And I love new things. I love learning new things. So that was just like, okay, now let's go put all of this into practice and started teaching. And our local elementary school is being a small rural school was quite diverse. because of our local university. So
Okay.
when I first started there we had, 10 languages represented at school. And I was like, this is awesome. And I was just learning so much. The students and their families taught me so much. Watching was like it was like a dopamine hit over and over and over when I would see the students acquiring language with my support.
Mhm.
And then me learning things too at the same time. It was like, this is the best job ever. And I still love it. I retired, but couldn't stay away too long. And so now I'm going back 3 days a week because I missed it. I missed it
Mhm.
so much. I missed the students and the interactions with students so much. In
Oh, I
fact,
bet.
quick story. When I went back, I took January through April off. And then they were like, we could probably use some help during this time in early May. So I was like, yes. So I'm at a different school, which I don't mind. Love new things, sure. New people. So meet whole new set of students. And this group of students was from Honduras. And so I was sitting there getting to know them and again, building relationships because I want to and because that's best practices anyway. So this little boy, and I was like, yeah, I'm so glad to be back. And he said, Miss Vines, would you clean my glasses? And I was like, yes, I will. And I'm like, oh, I'm so glad to be back.
Oh.
Glasses, yeah.
Oh, that is so funny. You're talking about, I think, something that it just takes someone who is willing to be of service to be in
Yeah,
this type of role.
for
So
sure. Well,
that
I think that's what can happen, not always, but it can happen when you retire. You're so used to, especially if you've been in elementary education specifically, I feel like you're constantly meeting needs as I'm sure you're familiar, the last few years, especially the last two, our students and their families have been almost like on high alert. The things they're facing with immigration were affecting everything as it would. There were several students and students' parents that would come in and like one we've had at that time when I was still there, we'd had two fathers that had been deported and ICE had raided their workplace. And this sweet little third grader, obviously, was so shook up and torn up. I was just glad to be there. And the fact that she was showing up every day and that her family members were getting her on the bus, getting her to school, and that she was so high functioning while dwelling
Mhm.
on a moment. You know how when I know I'm witnessing a moment that she will never forget for the rest of her life. I felt privileged to be there to support her. And I knew that was why I was there. It
Mhm.
wasn't about can she find main idea and details from this text. It was, can I be there for her and make her feel safe and know that this is a place where she can share how she feels anytime she needs to. And we have support systems in place for her and her family if she needed it. And I think I'm thinking about this day and I have this just heaviness in my heart when I talk about it. She would talk about, she'd say, Miss Vines, do you know when I'll get to talk to my dad? And I said, I
Oh.
don't, yeah, I know. Exactly. And I said, I don't know. I said, but we can talk about your dad anytime you
Oh.
want. And she said, my mom says that we'll get to see him. We just don't know when. And I said, right. We'll just look forward. I said, how about this? Anytime you want to write him a letter, we can always write letters. And this was just, one of many things we tried to do to just support them at school. But can you imagine going to school at 9 years old, trying to work, trying to just go about your day when your dad was just literally snatched from your family? And then I'm just going to give you one more little anecdote, but a mom came to school. And I feel like when they come to school, they're taking a risk just showing up at school,
Right.
possibly. And so she said, can ICE come into the school? And
Mhm.
I said, we've been told that they must have a warrant to come
Mhm.
into the school. And it would be highly unlikely that anybody in elementary school they'd have a warrant for anyone in elementary school. And I said, so we've been told they are safe here. And she said, well, what about the bus? Can they get on the bus? And I said, no, that's considered a part of the school day. They cannot enter the bus and take anyone. Then she said, what about the bus stop? And I'm just like, she's having to plan and strategize how she's going to keep her child in America. It is mind blowing to me. So, and as a fact, they cannot take the child from the bus stop. That too is considered part of the school day. But I did have to tell her beyond that, walking from the bus stop to her home, that there was some potential there. Not that we've had any of those experiences with children, even high school age children. We haven't had any of
Right.
those experiences. But just their school is so rigorous, as you know, school is very rigorous academically. And then to add in those emotional factors into a school day is ridiculous. It's a sad, sad time for our students whose status is unsure. It's
Right.
a sad time.
I can't even imagine. You're talking about things that don't even come with a job description. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And, for you to even feel like it's a privilege for you to be there, I mean, it just speaks to who you are and your
Yeah.
character. So I am thankful that you were there as well because this is something very real that's happening in
Yeah.
the community of immigrants.
Mhm.
Is there anything that you want people to know, or do you think that people misunderstand about ESL students or the immigrant experience?
Well, I am only going to speak to my students and my student population. Of course, I've taught for over 20 years, ESL. You ask any teacher at our school, what kind of students and student families our second language students represent, they overwhelmingly will say, like they've said to me, hey, give me all your ESL, put them in my room. I love them. They're so respectful, or their families. The thing is, the immigrants, pretty much any immigrant family that I have met through school, they are coming to America for all the beautiful things that America can offer: jobs, education, the same things that we all want for our own children: opportunities, choices. That's what they want to give their children, just like any mother and father, grandmother, grandfather. I have felt overwhelmingly supported by student families. If there's ever been any kind of behavioral issue, it is handled. It's just think that I have an acquaintance who said, I don't mind if the immigrants are here, but they really need to immerse themselves in the language. They need to be learning English. And I'm like, hold up. I have information for you to share. It takes, on average, 7 to 8 years to become proficient in a language. And that's 7 to 8 years of study, daily, continuous, structured study. These families, just like you, are working. When do you suggest they sit down and have long study sessions of English? If it were that easy, everybody do it. If it were that easy, I'd be totally proficient in so many different languages. It's not that easy, people.
Yeah.
It takes so much effort to do that. And a lot of times they don't have the time or the energy to do structured study. And if you see any free English programs, you let me know. They're not just everywhere. And then I asked, would you volunteer to be a conversation partner? That's a great way to help somebody learning a new language. And they're like, well, I don't know that I necessarily have time for that. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, you let me know how you could be helpful, since that's so important to you that they learn English.
I love that. Thank
I
you. Thank you for that. Yeah, that is just so true though. I was born in the US, and even then Spanish was my first language. So
Right.
people don't believe me. They're like, "Oh, but you don't have an accent, or oh, you speak English so well."
Well,
I was born in Houston, Texas. So as you can imagine, a lot of my teachers, they spoke Spanish to me. So
Sure.
it wasn't until we moved to Georgia where I had to take ESL. And of course, as a kid, you end up learning it because you just
You're
absorb that.
immersed.
So for me, it was easy. But then my mom, she still struggles. She was a housewife and she ended up working later. But
Mhm.
I remember she would watch Sesame Street
Yeah.
with my younger brothers, and that's how she learned English. So she understands it very well, but she doesn't speak it as much just
Right.
because she's embarrassed.
Yeah. Well, and when you were younger, obviously that's really the best time to learn new languages because your brain is so plastic. By the age of 3, our brains have started to shear off parts where almost like a survival, like my caregivers speak this language. So all my focus needs to be on this language because this is where I'm receiving safety and care. So they
Mhm.
kind of start shear. And as you get older and older and older, it's not impossible, obviously. Many people do it, but it's definitely more challenging. It's going to take more time. So the lucky thing about going to elementary school and being immersed in language is it's so automatic. One of the my I just love it. You see it all the time. One of my greatest joys is seeing there's a kindergarten teacher that at our local elementary school, and at the one time she had 5 languages plus English, so really 6 languages in her room. There were no barriers. Kids do not care if you do not understand them. They will figure it out. And watch them play on the playground, not understanding anything, really,
Right.
but really they are. They're picking up on all the body language, all the context clues. Play, especially for little kids, is such a good teacher of so many things. You learn how to negotiate with each other and the world around you. And again, I'm going to get on a little soapbox. That's what's limiting our students today in public education. They've taken away free play or even structured play. There's very little play. And
Yes.
that's where children learn and develop so many things that they need for socially, emotionally, how to negotiate the world. But
Yes.
anyway, back to that. But yeah, children don't care if you don't understand them. Here's another example. My Spanish is coming along and I learn something new every day. I think this may have been 2006, even 2007. There was a new kindergartner that came and she was sad to leave her mom. So I would let her sit on my lap and do I would keep her close to me. She came to school. I'll never forget this word, never. And she kept saying, and was crying and she kept saying, Estoy calvo, estoy calvo. And I was like, what is and she just kept saying it over and over. And I had no idea what calvo meant. So I go to another student. I'm like, can you ask her, what's going on? What is she saying? And they said, she's saying she's bald. And I'm like, she'd had a haircut. She had long hair and her mom had cut it way up here. And I was like, I will never forget what calvo means. So it's like, that's really how students learn too. The teacher is saying something, they finally get some context. And part of being an ESL teacher too, where really I feel like any good teacher is you are using all the resources that you can possibly use to help with meaning and understanding. If I have, like, people say, how do you have like new Chinese speaking students, new Vietnamese speaking students, Spanish speaking students, Korean speaking, all in one class? I'm like,
Right.
it's not hard at all. They're all learning English. And we're using movement and music and pictures and videos and games, using and engaging the entire environment, bodies. That's why they're so exhausted. That's why they're so exhausted. That brain has been amped up all day long.
Yes. Oh my
And
gosh,
sometimes
absolutely.
teachers will say, especially their classroom teachers, they'll say they kind of check out. And I'm like, that's because they just can't work at it anymore. They've reached a
Mhm.
capacity for their brain. They're exhausted. So they're going to have to take a little break. I said it would be like, and I always say this, like when you go to If you plopped me in China, me having to navigate a school, a classroom, knowing nothing, imagine the fatigue
Right,
that and the attention that would be required to gather meaning. It would take
right.
everything you've got, and I feel like that's what these little children are doing all the time. And at school, I always say, I have a big poster in my room that I had drawn, and it's a little boy, and he has a big speech bubble, and in the bubble are just English words. Then I have a little girl, and her speech bubble is huge, and it's filled with English and Spanish words or Chinese words or, Korean words, just to let everybody be aware that I always tell them, your brain's so much bigger. It's so much bigger. And your word bank is so much bigger. So it may take you a little bit longer to go through all these words to get the one you want.
Mhm.
That's okay. That is
Yes.
okay because you have so many more words than the ones who just speak one language. So I always try to make them feel like this is a gift,
Yes.
is special. This is a wonderful big brain thing for you.
That is so helpful for them. Thank you for that.
Sure.
How would you say that you stayed grounded and joyful in this profession that can be so emotionally demanding?
I got the answer for this one. I really do. And when I mentor new teachers, new educators, you find your people. You're in a workplace, and most schools may have a faculty of 30 to 50 people. You stay away. You don't have lunch with, you don't hang out with the negative, downer, yelling at kids, don't want to be there. You are a peer and a coworker with them, but you don't choose to spend any time with that element. I always sought out the teachers who felt like me. And
Mhm.
that's what I tell because you're going to find both in any workplace, really.
Right.
But I love what I do, and I'm gonna find other people that love what they do. And also, when you do that, it keeps you going. When you have the very sad child whose father was deported, that you're just like, "This is so hard. This is so difficult." Or you have the student who's you find out there's some abuse in their home. It's heavy,
Mhm.
heavy. But if you have a foundation of people and coworkers that love what they do and are there to teach and are there to love the students and are there to be there for the whole child along with and the whole child includes an extension of their family as well. They're not an island. They come with aunts and uncles and cousins and grandparents and parents and siblings, and you're there to then that makes your job so much easier.
Yeah, and it's easy to find, I feel like people can tell
Yeah,
who the
yeah, you can.
loves their job, like I said, you can just tell by their
Yeah,
energy, what they're
yeah.
saying, how they're glowing. I mean, when I see you, I feel like, Leslie is glowing. She's like this
Oh,
bright light.
oh,
I
thank
need to talk to her because where did this light come from?
well, and I think too, when and I have a relationship with God, and that really is that relationship bears the weight of most of my life. So it's easy to me when the God I worship wants me to serve. It's not about me, Do I take care of myself and make sure that I'm well enough to serve? Yes. But the joy that I get from serving students and their families it gives me life. And so I hope always to have, to be at some capacity to always do that. Because I think as you get older and you're retired, you have a propensity for your world to get smaller and it become more about you and your needs and your health and what you want. Like people have asked me, "Why would you come back to work? Are you crazy? You can do whatever you want." And I'm like, "But is that healthy? Is that really is that going to bring me joy doing whatever I want?" I know it isn't. It isn't. but going out and meeting the needs of students and their families and coworkers as well, that I know will bring me life, bring me joy.
I love that. I could talk to you forever.
Oh,
Oh, we're running
same
out
girl.
of time. Okay, let me choose my last question.
Okay, I'm ready.
We can do this one. What has life taught you about joy or love or even yourself? Or just period? What has life taught you?
Okay. Getting older is lovely. Don't fear it. It is, I am more, I feel like I'm at an age where I am more comfortable with myself and more, I feel like I'm the smartest I've ever been. Like, I've got some knowledge that I can drop on a lot of different things. And I think that if I could tell my younger self things, one of the things I would say is beauty standards are made up. They're not real. What? I think about how I used to have a tendency to um, need to be thin, need to be fit, but not too fit, need to be thin, but not too thin, need to be whatever. I feel like I'm quoting the Barbie movie here, but it's like there were all these things that I was supposed to fit into. And I think where I am at my level of fitness and what I do for fitness now, which is heavy strength training and weight training, I think if women went into the gym and started learning how to lift some heavy weights, it makes you feel so strong. And I think as a woman, you have especially, I mean, I've never been big, never taken up a lot of space, but I am so strong now and I love that feeling so much. I would tell women, go in there and get those muscles. I remember a lot of women have said when they come in the gym, well, I don't want to get too big and bulky. And I'm like, why? Why would you give me all the bulky muscles? I want all of them. There, it's like there's a box that we're supposed to fit in. No, no, you need to get rid of the box. I remember when I first went all the way gray. I feel like I should tell this story real quick. I had very dark, my mom is Italian and Greek, very dark hair, and so I started graying really early. So I thought, I didn't even question it. I just colored my hair. If that's what you're supposed to do. And it became such a burden to me. I mean, financially, time. And so one morning I was getting ready for school. This was maybe like 2019, maybe 2020. And I needed to get my hair colored, but I was putting it off because I didn't want to go. It took so long and I was so tired after work. So I had the can of root spray. You may not even know what that is, but it's this little can, you shake it and you spray your roots. So I was like, I need to spray my roots. So I'm doing this and I just paused and I said, what are you doing? You are spray painting your hair. And that was the moment. That was the moment that I said, I'm done. I am
Right.
done with this. This is ridiculous. And that opened the gate to a lot of different things that I did or was kind of investing in and that I just thought, no, I'm not doing that anymore either. And then somebody said something about, do you ever do your nails? And I'm like, no, not willing to put any time or any money into that either. Do you go get facials? Nope. No time, no money going into that. It is the most wonderful, freeing, lovely. I would never go back. And I have had kind friends and daughters that have said, Mom, you should maybe try this anti. And I'm like, I'm not anti-ing anything. This is me. No anti necessary. And then my girls would say, well, it would make you look younger. I'm like, why do I want to look younger? And how does that serve me? What? Looking young?
Right.
Who
Right.
cares? I do not
Right.
care about looking younger. Do I care about strength? Do I care about health? Absolutely. 100%. Anything that's going to help me feel good and take care of my family and do some fun things, I'm willing to do that. But anything that's not serving me in those areas, I'm not putting any time or money into it at all. So
Right.
I don't know if that even answered your question. I kind of interpreted that question as what would I tell younger women? That's what I would tell younger women is
I love that though, because honestly, I would say I did the same thing. I'm like, who am I doing this for? And why am I doing this?
yes,
I'm not trying to meet any else's standards anymore, right? It's like I
right.
started feeling great too, and I'm like, you know what?
Yes, and it's lovely, by the way.
I thank you. No shade to
Oh,
those that
no.
choose to, but
Right.
for me, I choose to spend my money differently and my time differently. And like
Seriously.
so much maintenance, I couldn't. And I was like, oh my gosh, 200, what?
Yeah,
No, absolutely
yeah.
not. I'd rather go travel,
Oh,
I'd rather
yes. Yeah,
something
but now
else.
when I spend, $200 on a really nice pair of running shoes, yes, I would choose to put my money into that,
Yes,
where other people would go, "Are you kidding? Why would you that's crazy. You could go get a facial and a massage for that." But, that's me. I'm very intentional about where I'm putting those 2 resources, time especially, is that's such a valuable resource, that's not really
absolutely.
renewable. So, absolutely. But yeah, your hair looks lovely.
Thank you, and so do you. So do
Thank
you.
you.
Well, it is time. You have to get
Now,
going, but thank you so
mm,
much for spending a little bit of time with me today to share a little piece of your story. Thank you,
you're
Leslie.
so welcome. Thank you. I appreciate the invitation.
Have a good day.
You too. Bye, Patty.
Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, follow, and share this with someone who might need it. Stay tuned for the next one.